Hi everyone, it's time for our Motto Facebook Live thingy. So I thought today I'd like to give you a little bit of insight on how we choose topics. So the topic of today is what what we call lack of ego. And generally when we talk about, it's not a really nice word to use, lack, because you don't want to lack anything. You want to gain, right? And you want to have a positive word when you talk about stuff. But because ego is such a topic that we talk about so often, I thought, okay, let me just give you some insight. So when we discussed in our meeting about this week's theme, and it was shared that it is lack of ego, the first thing that Lily, that works with us, said is, oh, haven't we spoken it to death already? And I said to her, yeah, I wish, because the ego is something that I think there's so much to be said about. And unfortunately, ego is also something that we develop as children, and we develop it from as youngsters. The moment we realize how our brains function, or when our brains start programming and planning stuff, we start realizing that we actually have something that can protect us. And that thing is called the ego. So there's the sense of insecurity and unsafe and not knowing and what the future holds. And that's the kind of stuff that makes us want to put a shield up and protect ourselves from this ego. So the reason why the ego has been developed is because we feel threatened. So I want to challenge you today on a few things. So when we say, when are we out of our ego? And when we are out of our ego, what really happens is you're in a space where there's absence of resistance, because the moment there's ego, it means you've got to protect yourself, you've got to worry, you've got to, be scared of something, and you've got to resist. So the whole idea that I want to plant with you today is this whole concept of flow. So we often talk about you've got to be in your flow, and I'm completely in my flow, and this is what I do when I'm in my flow. And what does it really mean? So I want to ask you, when have you been lost in something that you're busy with, whether you were so engaged with a painting or a picture or something that you were writing, or numbers, or something that completely drew you in, that you lost a sense of time, that, and the timelessness, that is flow. That is the opposite of ego. So I want to challenge you and ask you, when last have you experienced flow in the workplace? When last have you been able to sit and work with people around you where you guys were just so creative and you were able to get so much done? That is complete ease, that is complete safe environment, that is complete not ego. And as a leader, the challenge is then to say, how do I create an environment where there's no ego present, where we are able to let go of our egos and these shells? Because we spend so much of our time building other people's egos and boosting egos so that we can get through to what you really want to talk about. So what I know is when is it that you become aware that you have a challenge and that you're moving into your ego, is the moment you get upset. So when you get upset, when you say, I am not okay anymore, there's a part in your brain right at the back, the amygdala, that kicks in, and that part of the brain then says to you, you better get out of here, you better protect yourself, you better resist. And that's when the ego kicks in. And what we've got to learn to do is to go directly opposite to this instinctive way of operating, and say no. And basically say, okay, I see you. I see that I'm scared. I see that I'm going into my ego. I see that I'm upset. And the upsetness is your gift. I heard this earlier this week, that when you get upset about something, when something creates discomfort for you, when you feel like you want to run away, it is a gift. That is something that makes you aware that you need to now say, what is going on for me and where does this come from? And that pattern that you have built up in your subconscious mind is what you need to break then. That is where the work really starts. That is where you say, okay, so why is it that I think when this person said XYZ that I need to react in that way? Why is it that that triggers me? And then usually what happens is there will be a story that comes out. And then, like we said last time, to think about that story and say, but is that true? Is it true that this person doesn't care for me? Or is this true that I'm not worth what I think I am? Or is it true that he thinks I'm an idiot? Is it really true? Okay? And then to turn it around and say, maybe I think I'm an idiot. Maybe I don't care enough. Maybe I'm not paying attention to myself. And to change it around so that you can give yourself some self-love. Another really cool question that you can ask yourself when you trigger, so in other words, when you realize you are now in your ego, the question is, that thing, so that gift that you get, so that thing that triggered that you realized, flip, I just completely stepped into my ego. So that usually happens like with your children when you lose your cool and you say things like, I am the mother and you will do X, Y, Z. When that happens, what I want to suggest is that you say, okay, what is it that has been said that triggers this in me? What is it that I hear? And then there's going to be a story. And then to say, can I just be with this? Can I sit in this? And that's all you need to do. Because the moment you recognize it, the moment that you see this lack or this not good enough, not being okay, that is the moment when you become still, that you can flip it around and you realize what's really going on, and then you get better. I know this is sort of a weird topic for today, but it's a topic of the week, and it's all about ego, and we know how much of our time we spend in our egos, and how absolutely destructive it can be, and how we completely miss the wood for the trees. I hope you have a beautiful day, and good luck with seeing the egos in what you do.